experiences with public speaking anxiety. So if you're interested in learning more about integrative ways to improve your mental health, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I'm Dr. Nishi Bhopal. I'm an integrative psychiatrist and sleep doctor, and I'm the founder of Pacific Integrative Psychiatry. We're an online mental health practice serving adults across California with anxiety, depression, and sleep issues. We also provide nutritional services for mental health. Today we're talking about public speaking anxiety. And why I decided to talk about this is because a lot of our patients at Pacific Integrative Psychiatry struggle with this, especially if you're a high-functioning professional. Public speaking is one of those things that we kind of have to do, but most of us really don't enjoy it. And in fact, some of us hate doing public speaking. And I'm going to share a little bit about my own story with public speaking anxiety, because as I've started this practice and I have another business, I have had to do a lot of public speaking. And it is definitely not my favorite thing to do. In fact, it's something that I avoided doing, or at least I tried to avoid doing at all costs for most of my life. And it's still not my favorite thing to do, but it does not cause near the level of anxiety and panic as I used to experience, even just up until a few years ago. So I thought maybe it would be helpful to share some of my experiences with this. So I've had issues with public speaking anxiety pretty much as long as I can remember. There was one time when I was in grade 3. I grew up in Canada on the West Coast, so when I was in grade 3, we had to do a rap. All of the kids were assigned to get up in front of the class and do a rap about something. I don't even remember what it was about. I just remember being so nervous and like what a nightmare of an assignment this was for a very socially anxious and introverted 8-year-old. And all I remember is standing in front of the classroom, all the students in front of me, and just feeling completely paralyzed with anxiety. And somehow I did it. I don't even remember anything about it other than just staring straight ahead at the back of the classroom and then sitting down, like running to my desk as soon as it was over. It was pretty terrifying. And that's my first very vivid memory about public speaking anxiety. In this case, I guess it was kind of public rapping, which is probably even scarier for many of us than public speaking. But what I do recall is going into this fight or flight state and just feeling like I never wanted to experience this again. So for different people, public speaking anxiety can show up differently. For some of us, it can feel like you're dissociating, like you're not fully in your body, just like when I was doing this assignment when I was in grade 3, of just feeling completely disconnected from my surroundings, just kind of tunnel vision, and not really being aware of what was going on. For others, it can also include feeling really jittery, upset stomach. That's one that I get a lot as well, sometimes even dry mouth. And then there's other cognitive aspects, a lot of dread leading up to it, thinking about it, ruminating about it, and then even after the fact, rehashing it in your mind, replaying it, thinking about, why did I say it like this? I should have done that differently or said this differently. What were people thinking? So the anxiety is not just during the public speaking event itself, but it also can be present leading up to the event, and then it can continue after the fact. So I shared about this story when I was in grade 3. Of course, as you go through school, you have to do speeches and other kinds of public speaking events. Even during high school, I did them, but I had a lot of anxiety during those kinds of assignments. As I went through university, of course, there were different presentations and things that I had to do. And again, I kind of got through them. They were never my favorite thing to do. If they were ever voluntary, I was definitely not signing up to do any kind of public speaking. I would avoid it at all costs, like I said. So going through university, medical school, residency, there's a lot of public speaking that you had to do. And, like I said, I would try to avoid things that were voluntary. But now it's gotten to the point, like I said, where I have my own business, I have a practice, and there are a lot of public speaking opportunities that you kind of need to do if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're an executive. And they're not my favorite thing to do, but at this point they have become voluntary rather than involuntary, because it is a requirement in many cases to be able to communicate effectively, to do public speaking, to increase your visibility if you want to move forward in your career. And so that's why it's very important for those of us who are in these fields to acquire public speaking as a skill. And it truly is a skill that you can learn and that you can develop. It's not something that people just have, they're just naturally good at it, or they don't have it, they're just not good at it. For some people, yes, it may come naturally, but for many of us it doesn't. But it is something that we can learn, we can practice, we can refine, we can cultivate, and we can use it as a tool for personal growth. So for me personally, I've been doing a lot of public speaking lately. I've got my YouTube channels and I've got other venues where I do speaking. It's even gotten to the point where me, the socially anxious, very introverted, very phobic about public speaking person, is now being paid to speak on different stages, which is just mind-boggling to me. I just never thought I would get to that point. And why I'm sharing this is because if you are struggling with public speaking, you can get there as well. Now, I actually spoke at an event a couple of years ago, or it was last year actually, where I was flown to New York to speak on sleep, which is one of my specialties. They actually paid to fly me out there. They paid me to do the speaking on a panel, and I was really nervous. I wanted to cancel. I didn't want to do it. I was going through my brain thinking about different excuses to get myself out of this situation, which is a dream in some ways and a nightmare in other ways, but I got through it. And one of the things that I did was I brought my partner with me so that he would be there in the room, in the studio during this recording. And they actually said that no one had ever brought their partner with them before, so maybe a little bit embarrassing, but it was really helpful to have him there. But there are some other tools that I can recommend if you're working on your public speaking, if you want to get over public speaking anxiety, because it is a skill and it is very possible to overcome this anxiety. As I said, I am living proof of that. So my number one tip is exposure. And what I mean by that is exposing yourself to situations where you are doing some kind of public speaking, whether that is a presentation at work, whether that's practicing speaking up in a meeting, whether that is doing an interview with somebody. There's lots of different venues where you can practice public speaking. Maybe it's just speaking up in front of a group of friends. So think about areas where you can practice, because the more you do it, the easier it becomes over time. And I'm speaking again from personal experience, from someone who was at one end of the spectrum where I would avoid it at all costs, to now where it's still not my favorite thing to do, but I am able to get through it. And a lot of that is simply from doing it. The more you do it, the easier it gets. The second tip is to practice. And so what I mean by this is that if you are giving a presentation, practice it multiple times. The first time you get up in front of your audience shouldn't be the first time that you are going through this presentation. So practice it, rehearse it. The more you do that, the more you become comfortable with the material, and then the easier it is to deliver it, and the smoother your delivery will become. Now, this is easier for pre-scripted presentations. So if you're presenting a slide deck, for example, you kind of know what you're going to say. So this idea of practicing is very helpful. Now, sometimes it's a bit anxiety provoking if there's going to be an open-ended aspect of the presentation. So for example, if there's an open-ended Q&A or something, that can be a little bit different. And that's actually the thing that I get most nervous about, because I don't know what's going to come up, and I'm worried that maybe I won't know what to say, or maybe I'll ramble too much. But even then, you can prepare a little bit. You can sort of anticipate the types of questions that people might ask and practice those answers. You can map out a few key points. You can map out ways that you want to say things that you think might come up during the presentation. That way you'll be less likely to ramble or go off on a tangent. The next tip is that it's okay to be nervous. In fact, it's totally normal to be nervous. And the symptoms of nervousness feel very similar to those of excitement. So a little bit of an elevated heart rate, breathing a little bit faster, feeling a little bit jittery, having a little bit of queasiness in the stomach, excitement and nervousness look very similar in those regards. So you may have heard this mindset hack, which is reframing your nervousness as excitement. So instead of saying to yourself like, oh my God, I'm so nervous about this presentation, reframe it to, oh, I'm excited to share this information with my audience. The next tip is that you will likely not seem as nervous to your audience as you feel. We are often our own worst critic. You might feel like, oh my God, everyone's going to notice that I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm really nervous, or they're going to see how jittery I am, or how shaky I am, or what have you. But usually it doesn't come across as vividly or as robustly as we think it might. The next tip is to talk a little bit more slowly. And this tip really works for me because I do tend to start talking really quickly, especially if I'm nervous. I can start going really fast. So allowing yourself just to be intentional, to talk a little bit more slowly. This involves breathing a little bit more slowly as well. It can be quite calming. And of course, it's easier for your audience to understand what you're saying if you're not talking too fast. But talking a bit more slowly can help you regulate your nervous system better as you go through the presentation. And the final tip I have is to focus on your audience. Remember, they're there to hear what you have to say. They're interested in hearing from you. They're not there to see you fail. Generally, the audience wants you to succeed, and they really want to hear what you have to share with them. So taking your attention away from yourself and how you're feeling and how this is horrible and how nervous you are, to actually focusing on your audience and the intention behind the message you're trying to convey is going to help you shift your intention from a place of being self-centered to a place of service. So I actually have a big presentation coming up in a few weeks at a large conference. And I am incredibly nervous about this presentation. I was even having second thoughts, regrets about why did I even agree to doing this? I just don't want to do it. It's a lot of pressure. It's a huge venue. And I just don't want to do it. I'm just really nervous about it. And I'm just recognizing that these are natural feelings that come up for me before any type of public speaking event or presentation. And that's okay. So I can just recognize that, okay, this is a pattern that I go through with these types of events, but I have all the tools, I have the skills, I have all the tips that I just shared to help me get through it. Another thing that I have done and have been doing is I've been talking to my therapist about it. We've been working on this and looking at ways to reframe and looking at ways to cope with this big event. So I'm shifting my mindset to one of gratitude. I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to speak on that stage. And I'm looking at this again as an opportunity for personal growth, because the more I do these events, the easier they become over time. The less intimidating they become. And often the anticipation of these types of things is worse than the actual event. So if you're struggling with public speaking anxiety, you can do it. Take it from me. It's not something that I ever thought I would be able to do. In fact, it's not something that I ever thought I would enjoy. And believe it or not, sometimes it's actually kind of fun. So if I can do it, you can do it too. This might be an episode where you want to go back and listen to all the tips and just keep on practicing. I'm rooting for you. Your audience is rooting for you. And if you're looking for help with mental health, we do see patients across California. We do psychiatry, psychotherapy, and nutrition. So check out our website, Pacific Integrative Psych, if you want to learn more.